Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sara Jane, and I am delighted for the program today to be joined by Kate Hawkes. Kate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure. Now, Kate is going to be sharing with us the power of your personal magic to manage stress and anxiety. A little about Kate. Originally from Australia, Kate's a freelance theatre professional, taught theatre at a liberal arts college, and founded an arts in healthcare company focusing on storytelling, performance, and created Performing Wellness, a theatrical process for managing trauma. As producing artistic director of Red Earth Theatre in Sedona, she directed a huge range of shows and facilitated arts workshops to veterans. A produced playwright, Kate's also a screenwriter, produced her own short film, and worked as a production manager on 2 short films. You had time for all of this. Kate's poetry and short stories are published in Art Ascent, Stray Branch, LISP, DreamQuest, and US1 Worksheet 68. She wrote Personal Magic, Conscious Empowerment Through Creativity and Spirit, and has a chapter in the Brave Healer Productions collaborative book, Expressive Arts, The Ultimate Creative Guide to Transforming Stress. Balancing intellectual and creative pursuits, Kate is also a horsewoman, trail runner, and hot springs devotee. The more primitive, the better. Kate, thank you for joining us. You are a very busy bee.
Yep, that's me.
Please share a little, I mean, there's quite a lot there, but share a little about yourself and why this particular topic speaks so strongly to you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. This is just a pleasure, and it's terrifying, but it's a pleasure, along with the terror. I think all my life I've been around people who tell stories. My grandmother told stories growing up on a ranch in Australia. We always told stories at the end of the day. I went into theatre and I went into education, and I also have a degree in counseling. And I realized that all those 3 things I did, teaching, theatre, counseling, I was essentially doing the same thing. I was encouraging people to express themselves and to dig deeper than they would perhaps normally. And every time I would do any of this work, when people push a little bit beyond where they think they can go, they are suddenly so bold. They go, oh my God, I didn't know I could do that. So at a point in my life when I started to put it all together, and particularly doing Performing Wellness, which is working with people with trauma and chronic illness, I saw that by telling the stories of horrible things that had happened or illnesses, getting them out in the world and those stories being accepted, people were all of a sudden powerful. They moved from being victims who were sick and had to be fixed to creative people with something incredible to give to the world. So that, and I've had some of my own, which in the chapter in the collaborative book, which you and I are in, I share some of those. And then I added a spiritual component to it, which is really agreeing that you are part of something huge. You're not here by yourself, but you are also very small in the larger universe, and that's okay. So that all came together, and then I wrote this book, and here I am. I still do bits of all this work whenever I can, and it does keep informing everything I do. And this is how I live my life. So that's it.
So I'm just sort of wondering because, I also work with people with helping them to connect with their inner child. Because
Yeah.
we are the only person who can heal and support our inner child, and the hurt, the pain, and the trauma. I'm interested to know whether, and this is purely from a personal perspective and something I've come to believe, because you're working with people who have had trauma, have got trauma. The thought that came to me was that where post-traumatic stress, and I'm not going to put a disorder after it, is concerned, could it not be an earlier life trauma that has been triggered by a current, whether it's trauma or it's just something that's really actually affected somebody? And when you're talking about working with performing and supporting people in that way, that suggests to me that there is an element of understanding that it's potentially childhood trauma that there's been a catalyst within something newer.
That's interesting, and I think to some degree it is. I'm really clear, even though I do have a counseling degree and I did that for a while, I am really clear when I do this work. So even though there's Personal Magic, the book, it grew out of Performing Wellness. And Performing Wellness is a text-based process where people write. And it's really, I took the idea of theater improv. So we do improv with writing. And then when people have stopped thinking too hard, what I say to people is, don't think. We're just going to pour it out on the page. No thinking allowed. And then you take that work and then you bring your editor in and then you share it. So when I do that work, I'm very careful to say, this is not therapy. I'm not here as a therapist. I am here as a guide and facilitator for you to access your creative being, and I will give you the tools. And the way you do that is through what I call your wild child. So I tend to work not with the wounded child, but with that incredibly powerful child energy that we all have. You may have to go back a long time to find that time and place. But I look at small children. I have a grandson who's 2.5 right now, and I'm spending a lot of time with him, and I'm reminded that how they address the world. So for me, I'm not dealing with a wounded child. I'm dealing with that powerful, inquisitive, intuitive child, which I think is the energy that allows us to be creative and allows us to be our unique selves. It's before we get told we have to be somebody else. So that's sort of my way into the child part, but I totally hear what you're saying. And yes, sometimes that does come up. People go, oh my goodness, I thought I was going to be writing about my cancer, but I'm actually writing about whatever else it is. Like, yep, that's there too. So just wrap it into the story. Yeah.
And that's brilliant, because it's really important that there's not one specific way to look at anything. There are multiple ways to look at things. And I'm listening to what you're saying about the wild child. I have no idea where mine is, because my trauma was so early in life. I spent my first birthday in hospital. So I'm not convinced I ever got to be the wild child. And so that is a really it's a really interesting way to look at things. And so for those people whose traumas occurred sort of when you've had a chance to have a childhood, but there are an awful lot of people who don't get a chance to have that childhood.
Right. So I think that's the power of creativity and imagination. And that's where performance comes in. So the work I do, so for example, the very first exercise I do with Personal Magic and with Performing Wellness, and I just did it. I have a person I'm working with now. We did our first session on Monday, and she said, well, I'm a writer. I already know how to write. We did this exercise, and she was like, oh my God, that was magic. Yes, it's magic. So there's a way. So we do a guided imagery, and I take people to the beach, and we walk through all our senses, and it really doesn't matter whether you've had a personal experience that you can remember. We are all carrying in ourselves that wild child, whether or not that wild child got to express it in this reality, that child is still there. And sometimes using the wild child in this creative mode lets that child have what they never had in physical reality. And I have had people who say, well, I can't do this. No. And I go, just play then. Just pretend. We do that in theater. We pretend. And then we find the reality by pretending.
I love that. I took the steps in my 40s to have experiences. And so I've done a walk, I've abseiled, I've zip wired.
Right.
I've worked with the wolves we were talking about beforehand. Yeah. I've done numerous different things, flown a helicopter. I've done numerous different things because it was experiences, because I never felt I got anything because of going into the people pleaser and that fear of what other people thought. And so I suppose, if you like, that was when my wild child was allowed to come out and do a load of things that everybody thought I was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Bold, unafraid, curious. There's sort of an FU energy about the wild child. Like, this is me. Like it or not, this is how I am in the world. Now, the important part, and in my personal magic book, this is really important. Being a wild child is not licensed to be irresponsible. It's not licensed to ride over other people. So the point I make really clearly in all of my work is you are only truly free. So the wild child is a way to be free, right? The wild child is a way to access that free part of yourself. However, we're only truly free when we are also responsible, when we are also making choices. So a lot of the work I do is about being responsible, because if you don't take responsibility for yourself and your actions, you are still a victim. You are still blaming other people. Doesn't mean to say that awful things weren't done to you, but what you do now with that information is your powerful place. You can choose what you do with that. Now, you may need tools. People go, but I don't know how. Great. I'll give you the tools. I'm not going to say swim across the Bering Strait, and if you don't know how to swim, but hey, when you've learned how to swim, you can take that tool and you can apply it as and how you are ready.
And that's so important, is it? I think for me, one of the most important things to learn was to love myself, to honor myself, to trust and believe in myself, to set boundaries, and to learn to say no to others and yes to myself. But as you said, it is not about to the detriment of others. But for me, it's, if I don't have all those things for me, how am I actually going to bring those to other people?
Right.
And I don't know about you, but my personal journey is now the gift I can bring to others.
Right.
And I'm guessing, but so did all this come about from your own journey, or did it come about in a different way?
That's so. When I was invited to write a chapter for the collaborative book, and I actually have this in my chapter. When Jean spoke to me, I said, and I looked at the kind of books they were that Laura publishes, and I said to Jean, I'm not the right person to do this, because I can't point to one big trauma. I can't, I don't have a story that is one big thing that shifted the universe. I don't have that. And she said, well, but you do amazing work. Jean's very persuasive.
Yes.
And I said, what I realized, I said, well, I have a lot of small things. My story is more drip, 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 right? And Laura said, those are very important. A lot of people have the drip, drip, drip. They don't have the big thing that happened. So I was persuaded to write the chapter. And it was interesting because I made a list of some of the drip drips. And I'd never done that. Like, well, this, and at the end I went, holy cow, I'm surprised I'm still standing up. I didn't, when you add them up, it's like, whew. And my sister has always said to me, Kate, you're amazing. Stuff happens to you and you just get right back up. I think, so in the book, in my chapter, and then in my personal magic book, the ultimate thing is having some tools, having the stubbornness. I will not be pushed into shape by events or other people. I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm going to work out what I can do with that. And so sometimes it's choosing how I'm going to respond to what happened. I'm not going to react. I'm going to respond. And sometimes it's a matter of going, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know why. And I might have to agree to not knowing. It doesn't alter what I'm going to do with what's happening for me. It doesn't mean I'm all happy all the time and love everybody. No, there are people I think are absolute pieces of poop. Therefore, I make a choice not to be around them. So I think somewhere, and again, it's in the chapter, I grew up, our life growing up was all about personal responsibility. I grew up on a ranch with horses and animals, and our father was extremely good at never letting us blame our animals if something went wrong. If we came off our horses, he always said, what were you doing when that happened? We were never allowed to talk about our horse bucked me off. No, you fell off. You fell off because you were probably not making good choices. And it was, for me, pretty much true. And if we had a horse that bucked, like every now and again, I had a horse that bucked once, and my father was like, okay, we're not a rodeo. We're going to get rid of that horse. I went, oh, no. He said, then you get on and work out how to ride it. And I did. So I think it's that grounding of personal responsibility and wanting to do stuff. I didn't want to say no to things.
I think this is so very important, is because we all do come at things from different perspectives, different understanding, different experiences. And as you said, Laura said, those drips are really important. And people being aware of aspects, things that we've gone through, so that they can sort of say, I get it, I relate, I understand.
Yep.
And actually, this individual gets it, relates, and understands. Because there are so many. Is there anybody out there who hasn't gone through stuff, who hasn't felt sort of pressured into doing things they don't want to do? We've all had it. I can't believe there isn't anybody who hasn't had it. And so it's really important to know that we can re-find ourselves.
Right.
And this is what your program's about, isn't it? It's about helping people to find themselves. Right.
And what you said about, we tell our stories and other people go, oh my God, they get it. So performing wellness, I've worked with people with cancer, AIDS, MS, assault, all sorts of things. And the way we do the writing is it's very specific. We don't write about anything. We write from here, and then we see what we have. And then the next day, I always say, be very specific to your story. Tell the details of your story. Don't give a lecture. Don't try and make it fit everybody, or might as well just go to a talk somewhere. Tell your specifics. The more specific you are, the more likely people are to connect with it, even if you don't think so. So performing wellness, you do all the writing, and then they are paired with actors. Each writer's paired with an actor, and then the actor performs their writing in a theatrical venue. We have lights, we do rehearsals, we sell tickets. People pay money to come and see a show, and the show may be whatever it is. I worked with veterans a lot, so we did Soldier's Heart, and there were veterans telling their stories from their heart. Very specific. And what happens is the audience gets it's live performance, that helps, but they get so drawn into that person's energy. Even if it's an actor doing it for the writer, it's still a real person. And I have worked with good actors that they see themselves in the story. They go, oh, I know what that is. I identify with that. I've never been a veteran, but I understand whatever that specific feeling is, that specific of constant fear. Mine came from something else, but I get it. So when we are willing to dig deep, we not only empower ourselves by getting it out there, we empower others because they can go, well, that person survived, so hey, maybe I can.
I 100% get that, and that's exactly how I feel. It really is. It's not so much the story as the feelings.
Yes,
what we have felt, how it's made us feel, because as you just said, the story may not be the same, but the feelings for so many of us are. And as you were talking about that, I was thinking, many years ago, I was lucky enough to listen to a talk by Bo Eason, an American football player, I think he was. But he wrote a one-man called Runt of the Litter. And that was his story of how he became. I think it's an American football player. I don't think it was anything else. But you know, I'm not into sport, but he was giving this talk at a Messenger Summit, and he then performed his own story.
Wow, lovely.
And he was told he would never become because he was too little. That's why the Run to the Litter. And you were talking about it. It's exactly what it reminded me. I've never seen the play, but I did hear him talk. And so he not only helped himself to get to do what he wished to do, he's then shared the whole story of how he made that happen, which is slightly different to what you're saying, but it's still somebody sharing their story in words and deeds on a stage.
Right. And it works. So during COVID, we all know that I was in Arizona by then, but I was working with veterans, and I would go to the VA and I'd do creative workshops, and we'd do some long-term things. And we did 2 performing wellness processes. I still don't know how we did it, but we did it through the internet. And then I had actors online, and we recorded stuff. So you can actually, I think I have some links on my website to those stories with the actors. And then what I did, I interviewed the writers afterwards. So in the video that's posted, you can hear what the writers have to say about that. One of the gifts of having someone else perform your story is that you literally give your story away. You literally hand it to an actor. And so, having done this for years and years, often the feedback I get is, it was so nice to know that I wasn't carrying this by myself anymore. I had this living person who took the story, did it for me. And then the other thing, when they sit in the audience and watch their story, they all realize that is my story, but I'm not there anymore. I'm not stuck in that story. And the way performing wellness works is the writer always ends up on stage with the writer. They come together and they stand and take a bow. Very often, the writers were in it. They wrote themselves in it and they performed in it as well. It was entirely up to the writer. And that, again, was all about honoring their unique self. If you want to be in it, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You get to choose. You choose. And I will support whatever you decide to do.
Being ourselves, finding who we are beneath absolutely everything that we've been told by others, that we've seen, we've witnessed, we've experienced, etc., etc. And it's the sense I'm getting is you're peeling away the layers. You're helping people to be fully aware of their story, but no longer affected by their story.
Yep.
And I must admit, with the way I've worked, what my little one went through, but I'm not affected by that. It sounds horrendous in some ways. I can tell my story with a smile in spite of what my little one went through, because it doesn't hold any power over me anymore. The power my story has is supporting others to know that they can get through whatever it is they went through. And that's what it sounds like you're helping people do.
Yeah, and that is our personal magic. So we all have our own uniqueness in the world, right? However that has been formed, whatever we arrived with, whatever's happened, we are a unique being. And when we choose to honor that by how we live our lives, and if and when we want to share it, we are almost expanding our breadth of uniqueness, right? We're almost growing ourselves even more. Like I'm comfortable enough with my unique self to be in the world, privately or publicly, as this self. And I think that's really important. I think we discount personal stories a lot. We think, like I did, I don't think mine's that important. And fortunately, Jean said, I don't agree with you. So I always encourage people to dig into who you are in every way. In my personal magic book, I talk about the awareness, the difference between positive thinking and positive being. So simplistically, and the book I wrote it's meant to be very simple and very direct. And it's designed with lots of space for people to write their own notes in. You know, self-help books, you constantly want to write stuff down. So my book's designed with big columns so you can do that. But what I realized at some point was there's positive thinking. People go, oh, well, I'm just going to think positively and it'll be okay, which is fine. But I think a more effective thing is not what you think, but how you are. Right? How do you I'm going to think positive is different to I'm going to be positive about whatever happened. And that doesn't mean making it sunshine. It just goes, here's the thing. I'm going to positively move on from there. I'm not going to pretend it's just lovely. No, sometimes it's not. And again, it gets back to what do you do with what you have? That's where the personal magic and the power is?
Positive. It's a word we use so much, isn't it? Just think positive, be positive, do positive. But positive sort of suggests a yes. But it can be, okay, not sure about this, not particularly comfortable with this. Is it trying to teach me anything? Doesn't have to be a yes. It's a, do I look at this? Do I see?
Right.
Is the universe trying to tell me something? And there are times when some things happen and it's just like, okay, well, it's happened for a reason. Maybe I'll get to find out what that reason is. It'll make itself known if it's meant to. And I just, so that's not positive. That's not negative. That's, if you like, it's almost acceptance. Rather than, so it's very difficult. It's the English language, or any language, to be perfectly honest, is very difficult. The use of language, I'm sure a lot of people that you've worked with, it's, can you describe how this helps make you feel? And no, we can't. Things happen in our lives and we haven't got the words for them. And we try and fit words the best we can. But it's also realizing that we sometimes do not have the same meaning for a word that somebody else has. So their use of a word doesn't resonate at all with us. And I've said this so many times. My youngest sister loves the word service, being of service. I hate it because as a child, I was a waitress in my parents' hotel. I've also served behind a bar. I've also been a chambermaid. So many jobs that I've done have been service industry where you're doing things for people. What we do is we support people to do the thing for themselves. And so my understanding of the word service is doing for others, not supporting others to do for themselves. So our terminology, it's that the use of the terminology to help people understand. And we use that word positive so liberally that
So for me, I was thinking as you were talking, I think positive is being part of, being in, being willing to engage in. Negative is stepping back. So positive being is not, it is being willing to engage in your life in all its good, bad, and ugly and gorgeous. And it is, language is very tricky. So one of the things I've done in my book, my personal magic book, is everything, when I start to use words like non-attachment or whatever, I define it for this audience. So if I'm talking about self-awareness, for example, I say, this is how I am defining it for the purposes of this book. This is how, otherwise people do go off on a tangent. So I work really hard to say, this is the definition I'm using. And we can do that in our lives too. This is my definition. Now, the other thing we do in performing laws of personal magic, because of what you said about language, we do a lot of art. Again, the wild child, give the wild child a box of crayons and holy cow, out she comes to play. And that is another way that people who are very contained and I don't know how to do this and what if it's not right? When I do my workshops, I have a big box of old broken crayons. I defy you to open that lid, take a smell, and not suddenly be zapped back in time. There is something about So, and I don't like new ones. If I have new ones, I break them and put them in there because I want people to know this doesn't have to be perfect. If you have the perfect unbroken crayon, now you're feeling anxious. But if you're pulling out bits of broken, and I lay them on the table, and often we play music, I might give people a pointer and I say, okay, for 20 minutes, listen to music and use your crayons. And I often say, don't worry about drawing a particular thing. Just use color and shape as the music moves you. And that is often the first step to people finding their wild child, because they have to stop thinking about what they're making. I'm not looking for a perfect little perspective house on a hill. And that's a lot of fun to watch people start to breathe. And then we might do some writing, because by now they go, well, I'll just put anything down. It'll be fine. I go, yeah, anything down. It'll be perfect.
So it's helping people to tap into themselves. And that's what we don't do, isn't it? We just don't connect with our heart, with our soul. We're too much in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about getting
We're
out
too
of
worried. Yes. Yeah. And it's about, I think so much of our society and our education is about having to hit a certain mark, having to be right, having to have the right clothes, having to have the house. So everything is very goal oriented and usually with a time frame. So there's not a lot of room for being creative and wild, because you have to hit that mark. And so a lot of what I do, I say it's about process. I'm not interested in your outcome. So when I do the performing wellness stuff, which is 4 months, there's usually a point about halfway through when someone will say, you really don't care what we do you? And I go, no, I really don't. I'm not here as a therapist with a marker we have to reach. I just want to watch you expand. But although I must admit, because we do performances, and then this is where the responsibility part comes in. So the first 2 months is just playing with lots of different forms. And then there's connecting with an actor, and now they're collaborating. So this other level of communication and care happens. And by then the writer is starting to shift into a more objective mode about their story. And then we get to doing it. And what I say is, okay, I have not cared at all to this point what you do. However, in terms of being responsible to the people who are running the lights, doing the sound, the programs we've printed, you are now going to be responsible for the outcome of this show by not messing with your writing anymore, and by being present while we do it. And now I do care about the outcome, because I want your story to be told the best way it can for an audience who's going to come and see it. And it's this beautiful understanding, as we were saying earlier, responsibility and being willing to take that responsibility with the tools makes us so much more powerful. And therefore they can handle the exposure of their stories, because it's in this container that they have been part of creating.
I'm thinking about this, and it's just like, the truth of the matter is, you don't care because you do care.
Exactly. Yeah.
But also there's that word, isn't there? You used the word earlier about react. But react is also create. It's exactly the same letters.
Right.
And so,
yes,
are we going to react, or are we going to take a step back? Are we going to pause? And are we going to create a different outcome? And create is creativity. Right. It's tapping into ourselves and realizing that we don't have to go with the learned behaviors that we've got from all our experiences. We can actually create a different outcome.
Absolutely. And it might not be the outcome we were expecting, or that we thought we wanted. And that's the other really important thing. So I taught at a liberal arts college for 18 years, and I taught in the theater department. And at least for the last 10 years, in the, how you have a syllabus and it has the objectives and the goals of the objectives of the course. So, I was teaching theater, but I always had, you will learn to tolerate ambiguity. And the students would be really like, Professor Hawkes, we don't know what is this? And I go, you are going to get comfortable with not knowing. Just right now, you're feeling panicked because you don't know what tolerate ambiguity means. You're going to get really comfortable with that. And the more comfortable you are with not knowing, the more free and powerful you are. Because when you don't know, you're agreeing you're willing to learn more. And that makes you powerful. If you think you have nothing to learn, you're going to stay pretty damn small.
Oh, 100%. But sad part is so many teenagers think they know everything until they land, they don't. But we all do this to our parents, don't we?
And that's where they should be. I mean, that's part of their growth thing. They're practicing being separated from their parents. They're practicing being independent people. And that's important. But the next part is to then expand on that independent person you want to be and be more than you thought you knew was there. And that comes with creativity and responsibility. And I also will add, it comes with joy. Like, we have to see the beautiful things in our daily lives. And that, again, is each of us uniquely notice what for us is beautiful. So take the time to notice that. And that will also enhance your sense of your own self, because you are connecting to those little moments of beauty through your own lens. And then tell people, I drive people crazy. I go, oh, wow, look at that, isn't that? And I go, really? Is that? Yeah, I love the desert. I love the desert. My daughter, however, she's a forest girl. So we have learned to appreciate each other's environment.
Yeah, but people love the beach. Or me, I'm countryside. I grew up in Devon in the Dartmoor, and it's just the wildness of it. Give me that to the beach any day of the week, sort of. But that's what it's about. This has been fascinating, and we're coming to the end. So, is there anything that we have? And I know we've touched on so many different bits from different perspectives, etc. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to share before we close?
I think whether it's personal magic or using music or using all the different modalities there are, I think what I want people to understand is when you are searching for whatever that modality is, or therapist or teacher or religious whatever, I have a chapter in my book about this. Please know that you're looking for something to serve and grow you. And so ultimately, you get to choose. So it's like you need to interview your potential therapist. Are they right for you? You need to look carefully at whatever religion you are following. Is it right for you? You're allowed to say no to something that doesn't feel right. With that, once you've agreed to it, you need to get through the hard part, because there will be a hard part. Though, again, getting back to the writing, that every single writer I've ever worked with, about halfway through the process, says, "Oh no, I don't think I want to do this." I go, "Why not?" "Oh, I don't know. It's just not me." So we go out and have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and they've met that place of fear. They've met that little tipping point. where something is about to pop open. So if we all want to grow into our unique selves, we have to be willing to move through that awkward tipping point. We have to go, okay, let's just keep pushing through. And then you find your full personal magic.
Yeah. Oh, it is back to that trusting self, isn't it? And we do have to be pushed outside our comfort zone. And as I have been saying for quite a long time, because it's so many people say, yeah, but how do you get outside your comfort zone? You step back into yourself. Because as there's a saying, isn't there, nothing grows in your comfort zone.
Right. Yeah.
Kate, thank you.
And we're all about outside. So Sara, thank you so much. This has been a joy, and I'm so glad that I met you through the book. And I've also enjoyed looking at some of your other interviews. Everybody, you need to check out this lady's site. It is amazing. It's just
oh, bless you. And you also need to check out, if this has spoken to you, if you want to learn more about Kate and her work, www.wellnesswithkate.com. And if you're watching live, please, because everybody's being very quiet, it's right there in the chat. If you're watching this under the YouTube video, you'll find it there. We share because we care. And the reason I do all these programs and have been for over 11 years now is because it is putting out information for you to be able to find it. As you said, Kate, it's about research. Find what resonates with you. Find what you feel is going to work for you. Be prepared to work with it, because we're not here to do it for you. We can't do it for you. But that's why I do this, is because there are so many amazing techniques and practices out there to support people. And it is really important that the information is there for you to find. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for joining me, for sharing with us. It's been a real pleasure. And next week, I've got a today's conversation where my normal co-host, Scott's actually on holiday in Greece. But I'm being joined by two previous co-hosts, David Tyrrell and Patricia Kerrins. And amongst the things we're going to be talking about is trust universal divine timing. Thank you to Kate. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Take care, be safe, stay well. Namaste, sweet souls. Bye.